I'm leaving you for someone who actually supports my dreams. Those words shattered the silence of our Thanksgiving dinner table, where I had just finished serving the perfect meal to celebrate my husband's promotion to senior partner at Morrison & Associates. 23 years of marriage, reduced to a single sentence delivered in front of our twin sons, my elderly mother, and the cranberry sauce I had spent 2 days perfecting. My name is Catherine Mitchell, I am 45 years old, and until this moment I had been playing the role of the perfect attorney's wife flawlessly. For the past 18 years, I had been the director of operations for Riverside Medical Center, one of Chicago's most prestigious private hospitals. I managed budgets exceeding $200 million annually, coordinated schedules for over 300 physicians, and had turned a struggling facility into the most profitable medical center in the Midwest. I was the woman who had put David through law school at Northwestern, who had worked double shifts as a nurse while he studied for the bar exam, who had used my inheritance from my father to help him start his own practice. I was the one who managed our household finances, organized the charity galas that built his professional network, and ensured our sons Michael and Christopher never missed a soccer game or piano recital despite my 60-hour workweeks. I thought we were partners building something beautiful together. I was about to discover that I had been a silent investor in someone else's company. The someone in question was sitting at the far end of our dining room table, awkwardly pushing sweet potatoes around her plate. Amanda Pierce, David's 29-year-old paralegal who had joined our Thanksgiving celebration for the past 2 years. Amanda, who had tearfully confided in me about her student loan debt while I helped her negotiate a payment plan with the hospital's financial aid office. Amanda, who had asked me for career advice about transitioning from paralegal to law school, over coffee dates where I picked up every check. Amanda, with her perfectly highlighted blonde hair and the Michael Kors handbag I had given her as a birthday gift, now avoiding eye contact while my husband of 23 years explained how I had lost my ambition and stopped growing as a person. The same Amanda who was wearing diamond earrings that looked suspiciously similar to the ones David had claimed were too expensive when I admired them at Tiffany's 6 months earlier. Everyone in that dining room expected me to collapse. David had clearly planned this moment carefully. Thanksgiving dinner, family present, maximum emotional impact. He expected tears, pleading, maybe a dramatic scene that would justify his narrative about my instability. Our sons were staring at their plates, waiting to comfort their devastated mother. My mother was reaching for my hand, preparing to play mediator. Instead, I stood up, walked to my home office, and returned with a leather portfolio. "That's fascinating timing, David," I said, my voice as steady as my hands as I placed the portfolio in front of him. "Because I've been meaning to discuss some interesting discoveries I've made about our financial situation. Perhaps we should schedule a meeting with both our attorneys present." The fork slipped from his hand with a soft clatter against the china. "Catherine, what are you talking about?" he stammered, his confident demeanor evaporating faster than steam from the turkey. "Oh, we'll have plenty of time to review everything in detail. But Amanda, before you leave, I think you should know that the BMW in our driveway, the one David bought you last month, was purchased with funds from Michael and Christopher's college accounts. I thought you might want to discuss that with your husband." The silence that followed was more satisfying than any Thanksgiving feast I had ever prepared. Let me take you back to 14 months ago, when I first noticed something was amiss. As director of operations for a major medical facility, I live in data analysis and pattern recognition. Anomalies in systems, whether they're hospital workflows or household finances, create specific signatures that are impossible to ignore once you know how to look for them. I had always managed our personal finances with the same precision I brought to hospital operations. David was exceptional at corporate litigation, but he had never shown interest in budgets, investments, or financial planning. It was our division of labor. I handled the money, he handled the legal complexities, and together we built what I believed was a solid foundation for our family's future. The first red flag appeared in August 2023, when I discovered that our joint American Express account had been changed to paperless statements, sent to an email address I didn't recognize. When I called customer service, they informed me that David had authorized the change and added himself as the primary account holder, despite the fact that the account had been opened with my credit history and income verification. Then came the unexplained absences. David had always worked long hours, but suddenly he was attending depositions in cities that weren't hosting any cases his firm was handling. I know because I cross-referenced every trip with court records and bar association databases. Skills I had developed managing physician schedules and medical conference logistics. The breaking point came when I received a call from our mortgage company about a missed payment. Impossible, I thought. I had automated our mortgage payments years ago, and our account had always maintained sufficient funds. When I investigated, I discovered that David had quietly refinanced our home, adding $400,000 in debt without my knowledge or consent. Having spent nearly 2 decades managing financial systems for a major medical center, I knew exactly how many laws had been broken to accomplish that refinancing without my signature. That's when I stopped being a wife and started being a forensic auditor. The investigation consumed my evenings and weekends for 8 months. 8 months of acting like the devoted spouse while methodically building a case that would impress any federal prosecutor. I began by hiring Mitchell and Associates, no relation to my husband, but a private investigation firm specializing in matrimonial financial fraud. Within 3 weeks, they had confirmed the affair and provided evidence of financial misconduct that extended far beyond what I had initially suspected. David hadn't just been hiding assets. He had been systematically depleting them. The $180,000 in our son's college funds had been transferred to accounts I had never seen. Our retirement investments, worth over $750,000, had been liquidated without my knowledge. Even the antique jewelry I had inherited from my grandmother, pieces appraised at $85,000, had been sold to a dealer in Milwaukee. But David's most audacious move was what I discovered in March. He had been preparing to file for divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences, while simultaneously building a case to claim that I had been embezzling from Riverside Medical Center. He had fabricated evidence, forged my signature on documents, and was preparing to destroy my career and reputation to cover his financial crimes. What David had forgotten was that I wasn't just any hospital administrator. I was the director of operations who had implemented fraud detection systems that had caught embezzling employees, Medicare fraud schemes, and insurance scams worth millions of dollars. What he hadn't anticipated was that I had professional relationships with forensic accountants, federal investigators, and attorneys who specialized in exactly the type of crimes he was committing. I spent 6 months building a counter case that would leave him with nothing but legal bills and criminal charges. First, I secured our legitimate assets. Using emergency financial protection orders, a legal tool I had learned about during hospital malpractice cases, I froze all accounts pending a forensic audit. Every credit card, every investment account, every line of credit was locked down within 48 hours. Then I filed criminal complaints with both the FBI's Financial Crimes Division and the Illinois State Attorney's Office. Wire fraud, identity theft, mortgage fraud, embezzlement, charges that carry federal prison sentences, not just civil penalties. But my masterpiece was the discovery I made about Amanda's situation. The private investigators had uncovered something David didn't know I knew. Amanda was married. Not just dating someone, not engaged. Married for 4 years to Robert Pierce, a forensic accountant who worked for the IRS investigating tax evasion and financial crimes. Robert had no idea his wife was having an affair with her boss, or that his BMW payments, mortgage assistance, and credit card bills were being funded by money stolen from another man's children's college accounts. I invited Robert for coffee at a neutral location and presented him with a complete financial analysis of his wife's spending patterns, travel records, and the source of funding for luxuries he couldn't afford on his government salary. As a forensic accountant, Robert understood immediately what he was looking at, and what it meant for his wife's future. Robert was an IRS investigator who had built his career destroying people who committed financial fraud. He knew exactly how to make both David and Amanda's lives extraordinarily complicated, extraordinarily quickly. The first confrontation occurred in my attorney's conference room. David arrived expecting a civilized discussion about asset division and custody arrangements. Instead, he walked into a room containing my lawyer, a federal prosecutor, an IRS investigator, and a wife who had documented every fraudulent transaction he had made over the past 2 years. "Catherine, you're being unreasonable," he said, still attempting to control the narrative. "We can resolve this amicably without involving outside parties." "David," I replied, sliding 3 folders across the mahogany table, "amicable ended when you forged my signature to steal from our children's future. What you're looking at now are federal criminal charges, IRS tax fraud investigations, and a civil lawsuit that will cost you everything you think you've hidden." His face went through several shades of pale as he opened the first folder and saw bank records, wire transfer documentation, and forensic analysis of every illegal transaction. "The mortgage fraud alone carries a maximum sentence of 30 years, continued my attorney. "The identity theft charges add another 15. The IRS is particularly interested in the unreported income you've been hiding in offshore accounts." The second confrontation was magnificently public. At the Chicago Bar Association's annual gala, the same event where David had planned to announce our divorce and introduce Amanda as his new partner. Instead, he arrived to discover that word of the federal investigations had spread throughout Chicago's legal community. Partners avoided him, clients had already begun transferring their cases, and Amanda was nowhere to be found. The third confrontation happened in federal court, where David's criminal defense attorney, the best he could afford with frozen assets, attempted to negotiate a plea agreement. I watched from the gallery as my husband of 23 years tried to explain to a federal judge why stealing from children's college funds to finance an extramarital affair shouldn't result in prison time. The final confrontation was the most satisfying. In divorce court, where David's attorney argued for spousal support and asset division while simultaneously trying to avoid discussing the criminal charges pending against his client. My attorney presented evidence of every hidden asset, every forged document, every penny stolen from our children's future. The judge was not impressed with David's request for leniency. When you commit federal crimes to finance adultery, irreconcilable differences doesn't adequately describe the situation. Within 18 months, David lost everything he had tried to steal and everything he had legitimately earned. His partnership at Morrison & Associates was terminated when the firm discovered he had been using client funds to cover personal expenses. His law license was suspended pending the outcome of criminal proceedings. His professional reputation was destroyed when the legal community learned about the fraud, the affair, and the federal investigations. Amanda lost her job, her marriage, and her freedom. Robert's divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. IRS investigators don't negotiate when they've been personally betrayed. She was also named as a co-defendant in several civil suits, since she had knowingly benefited from stolen funds. Her paralegal certification was revoked, and her criminal defense attorney informed her that cooperation with federal prosecutors was her only option to avoid significant prison time. But the most poetic justice was watching David realize that everything he had built, his career, his reputation, his financial security, his professional network, had been made possible by the woman he had tried to destroy. Without my income, my financial management, my professional connections, and my unwavering support, David Mitchell was just another mediocre attorney with excellent manipulation skills and poor judgment. The life he had taken for granted, the success he had assumed was his alone, the future he had planned to share with someone else. All of it had been built on the foundation of my competence, my sacrifice, and my belief in our partnership. Today, I am the sole owner of our family home, worth $1.2 million in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood. I receive substantial alimony payments that will continue for the next 12 years, calculated based on the income David will never again achieve. Our sons, Michael and Christopher, learned valuable lessons about integrity, consequences, and the importance of choosing partners who enhance rather than exploit your strengths. I was promoted to Chief Operating Officer at Riverside Medical Center, where I now oversee operations for 3 facilities and manage budgets exceeding $500 million annually. Ironically, I have become the go-to expert for detecting financial fraud in healthcare systems, and I frequently consult with other organizations about implementing the detection protocols that caught my own husband's crimes. My professional reputation has never been stronger. The same analytical skills and attention to detail that David tried to frame as obsessive perfectionism are now recognized throughout Chicago's medical community as invaluable leadership qualities. I have been invited to speak at conferences, serve on boards, and mentor other women navigating career advancement in male-dominated industries. As for David, he completed an 18-month federal prison sentence for wire fraud and identity theft. Upon release, he was hired as a junior associate at a small firm specializing in traffic violations and misdemeanor defense, work that pays approximately 1/10 of what he earned as a senior partner. He lives in a studio apartment in a suburb 40 miles from Chicago, drives a 10-year-old Honda Civic, and will be paying restitution to our son's college funds for the next 8 years. Amanda served 6 months in minimum security federal prison and 2 years of supervised probation. She currently works as a receptionist at a veterinary clinic and is prohibited from working in any position that involves financial responsibility or legal documentation. Her cooperation with federal prosecutors prevented additional charges, but her career in law is permanently finished. 6 months ago, David requested a meeting to discuss reconciliation and rebuilding our family. I informed him that I was unavailable. I had board meetings to attend, strategic initiatives to implement, and a life to live that no longer included managing the consequences of his poor decisions. Michael and Christopher, now seniors in high school, learned something invaluable from watching their mother's response to betrayal. The difference between reaction and strategy, the power of preparation over panic, and the importance of building your own competence rather than depending on someone else's promises. My sons also learned that their mother doesn't break under pressure. She breaks even with interest. You see, David had been right about one thing. I did deserve a partner who supported my dreams and recognized my value. I just didn't need him to give me permission to find that partner. I had discovered that the most reliable partner I could have was myself. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting ahead, staying ahead, and building a life so successful that your betrayer becomes irrelevant to your happiness. 2 years later, I can honestly say that David leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me. He just didn't do it the way he planned.